Welcome to the Success in Africa podcast with Dr. Modupe, your weekly dose of leadership vitamins to make you successful in Africa.
Hello and welcome to the Success in Africa podcast episode 58. My name is Dr. Modupe Taylor Pierce, and I am a scholar and practitioner of leadership and organizational development. Simply put, I study what makes people successful. I have been studying this for 3 decades with a particular focus on people in Africa. And in this podcast, I will share lessons, stories, and insights about people having success in Africa. I created this podcast because I have a vision for Africa. I have a vision of Africa becoming a middle-income continent by 2030 and a high-income continent by 2040. And for that to happen, I need you and every other African watching or listening to this episode to become successful. So, if you want to be successful in Africa, I encourage you to like and subscribe to this podcast. This episode is brought to you courtesy of BCA Online, the one-stop shop for mastering leadership. Joining BCA Online is free, and it gives you access to countless hours of knowledge and videos and a plethora of information about leadership that will enhance your leadership capacity. If you have questions that you want me to answer after watching this video, just log on to BCA Online. The link is on the screen, and post your questions there. That is where I will respond to your questions. Today, we are continuing with our theme of learning about leadership in VUCA situations. VUCA stands for VUCA, that's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous situations. The person whose journey we will learn about has definitely had to deal with VUCA. She is the CEO of one of the most successful medical service companies in North Africa, a company that is listed on the London Stock Exchange. Her name is Dr Hend El Sherbini, and the company that she has successfully grown and led is called Integrated Diagnostics Holdings, or IDH. El Sherbini grew up in Cairo as the only child of highly accomplished parents. Her father was a surgeon and her mother a pathologist. Both of them were professors at Cairo University. Not surprising, the young El Sherbini also studied medicine, getting her bachelor's degree in medicine and surgery, and then a master's in clinical and chemical pathology, and a doctorate in immunology at Cairo University. She then went to Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, studied there, and worked at the Center for Disease Control, otherwise known as CDC in the USA, before later returning to Cairo at the end of the year 2000. When she came to Cairo, she took up a position as a lecturer at Cairo University. But it wasn't long before El Sherbini's mother came calling. She had, the mother, started an entrepreneurial venture, a diagnostic laboratory, 20 years earlier, and she entreated her daughter to join her at Moimena Camel Labs. At the time when El Sherbini joined the business, the company had 5 laboratories and 50 employees. 3 years after her joining the company, El Sherbini became the CEO of the company. She renamed it Al Muqtabar and set about a process of really understanding the needs of the company's market, the current and potential customers. One of the key findings of El Sherbini was that customers truly valued having the lab located in close geographic proximity to them. So she embarked on an aggressive expansion campaign, which resulted not only in the growth of the number of labs, but also growth in revenue as Al Muqtabar ate up market share due to proximity to its customers and consistent service. By the year 2010, barely 7 years after El Sherbini had taken over as the CEO, the company had grown from 5 labs to 115 labs, and from 50 employees to 1,000 employees. Throughout the expansion, El Sherbini ensured that the customers received consistent service by being a stickler for process discipline. All new facilities were required to adhere to the same international accreditation standards from the United States. Getting that accreditation was a really tedious process, but the requirement to adhere to those strict processes really paid off. It paid off in consistent quality between all the labs, and as a result, customer satisfaction. It also paid off in attention from investors, which Al Muqtabar started to get in 2010. Unfortunately for El Sherbini, the country in which the company was based, Egypt, was rocked in 2011 by political unrest. Banks closed. Employees were lost. The business was severely impacted. Supply chains were interrupted. Yet, through that uncertain and volatile period, El Sherbini ensured that she held regular meetings with her employees, and she paid special attention to the logistics of getting her supplies. In fact, she increased the volume of orders so that she could get a greater buffer of supplies, especially from those suppliers who were not based in Egypt. As a result of this persistence, as a result of her consistent mitigation of the risks, Al Muqtabar was able to maintain its market share throughout the unrest period. And in 2012, after the situation had calmed down, the same private equity investors, Abraj, came back and this time made a significant investment into El Sherbini's company. They merged it with a competitor company, Al Borg, and renamed the combined companies IDH, with El Sherbini as the CEO. With the additional capital, IDH's expansion took on a new pace as the company expanded into other countries and regions of Africa. Today, the company that El Sherbini leads is an $80 million conglomerate operating over 600 laboratories in Egypt, in Jordan, in Nigeria, in Saudi Arabia, and the Sudan. It's an African success story and a demonstration of how a family-owned business can become professionalized and conduct effective succession planning. The company is currently listed on the stock exchange, the London Stock Exchange, and it has an international board of directors. So how did she do it? What's the secret to her success? Well, El Sherbini herself credits her success to hard work, consistency, attention to detail, and luck. I'm going to examine each of these attributes just as she has credited them, so that we can see what we can learn from her. Let's take hard work. You see, despite being the daughter of two successful professionals and clearly being raised in a middle to upper class standard, El Sherbini understood and appreciated that she needed to work hard for herself and make her own mark in this world. She worked hard to be successful at the CDC. She worked hard as a lecturer at the Cairo University. She worked hard to get her degrees, and she understood when she came into her mother's company that the privilege of being handed the leadership of her mom's company was one that required her to take the company to the next level. She wasn't just satisfied with maintaining the 5 labs and 50 employees that she had inherited from her mother. She worked hard to understand the needs of the market and made adjustments to meet them. Secondly, consistency. El Sherbini was consistent. To grow from 5 to 115 to even 600 labs today and maintain quality, she as a leader had to be consistent in her words and her actions. And it was proven during the Arab Spring. It was also proven during COVID. Her consistency and discipline in running the company as a business and holding fast to the company's values never changed. This has helped IDH to build a brand that customers and medical professionals trust, no matter where they are in any of the countries where IDH has a lab. Third, attention to detail. Running a diagnostic medical services business in multiple countries requires a level of attention to detail that is definitely higher than average. El Sherbini understood from the beginning that this was going to be necessary, and so she invested early in getting accreditation from the United States in order to ensure that her staff would have to maintain that same level of attention to detail that she was espousing. And finally, luck. I believe that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You see, El Sherbini's preparation in growing the company from 5 labs to 115 and in achieving and maintaining accreditation, international accreditation, was what drew customers to her company and also drew the attention of international investors. Despite the interruption of the unrest in Egypt, the investors observed that the company was still consistent in maintaining its services, and they were willing to invest after the political unrest had settled down. This was a boost for El Sherbini, and it teaches us that it is important, especially in volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous situations, to stay consistent, to work hard, and to pay attention to the details. Because you don't know who is watching you. And those observers could become future partners or investors who will bring opportunity to match the preparation and performance that you are currently establishing in order to turbocharge your success. So, these are the 4 lessons to learn from El Sherbini. Hard work, consistency, attention to detail. And when you execute on all 3, luck will follow in the form of opportunity. We've now come to the end of today's episode. I do hope that you've learned a bit more about becoming a successful leader and entrepreneur in Africa, especially in VUCA situations. Thank you so much for listening or watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like the video. Tell your friends about it. Together, we can transform our beloved continent of Africa and make it a middle-income continent by 2030 and a high-income continent by 2040. I'll see you next week.
Tomorrow belongs to those people who prepare for it today. See you next week.